Oh look, Nintendo of America posted something new on Twitter. Let's go ahead and read the replies to this, shall we? Where's the Switch Pro? Give us the Switch Pro! That's not the Switch Pro! I want the Switch Pro! Why isn't this a Switch Pro? Oh, okay, so people seem to be heavily anticipating a Nintendo Switch Pro announcement or something like that. Now, obviously, this is something we have talked about a lot, especially recently on the channel because of new reports that have come out that said that this was supposed to happen before E3. But now it seems like it might not happen before E3. So I kind of want to talk about what's going on with this situation, share some of my insights on it as to what is actually happening with this and how it will actually impact what Nintendo and other third-party companies do at E3 when it involves the Nintendo Switch. But first, before we get into that, we do have a bit of good news to talk about, some exciting stuff, and that involves one of the biggest Nintendo Switch games that has been a mystery, and that is, of course, Shin Megami Tensei V. Now, this game was one of the first games announced for the Nintendo Switch, and much like games like Bayonetta 3 and Metroid Prime 4, we got a little bit of a teaser for it, more so than we got with those other games, and then the game just disappeared. Nobody really knew what the status of it was. Nobody really knew what was going on. Well, last night, a Japanese website for Shin Megami Tensei V kind of spilled the beans about what is happening with this game. It does seem like Shin Megami Tensei V is indeed in development. It seems like it's coming along nicely because it actually has a release date, according to the Japanese website, of November 11th, 2021. So that means that this game would be coming out in 2021, more than likely. This would be one of Sega/Atlus's big announcements at E3. And now the surprise is ruined because the Japanese website already updated this information and pretty much spilled the beans on what was happening with the release date of this game. So now if that's not just the most Sega thing in the world, like I don't know what is. Obviously this is a game a lot of people are looking forward to. Not really me, I'll be honest with you guys. You know, Shin Megami Tensei is cool. I have played a couple of the games before, but it's definitely sort of that, you know, hardcore JRPG stuff. It's very Japanese in development and in style and stuff like that, and it really just doesn't hit with me. Now, weebs like OJ from Player Essence, he probably crapped his pants about this and was doing a dance on one of his live streams. So shout outs to OJ. You know, I know you're very excited for this. For me personally, it, you know, not a huge deal. It's like cool, another JRPG to the Nintendo Switch. I mean, there's already a million on there, but it is nice to see that this game has been in development for quite a while now, and it will probably be a very polished game. Now, there's also rumors about the game having a collector's edition. There's no word on if that's just going to be Japan only. There's some story details that are out there as well. Nothing too crazy as far as the plot is concerned, like spoiler related or anything like that. Just sort of setting the pace and the tone for the game, how it plays, what sort of demons you'll encounter. So if you want that information, it is out there. Like I said, I'm sure OJ, our resident weeb, did a video on this, just all hyped about it. But for me personally, I don't really care all that much, but I figured some of you guys are JRPG fans and fans of the Shin Megami Tensei series, so I did want to relay that information to you. But now, of course, we have to talk about the Nintendo Switch Pro and where the hell is this announcement? Obviously, a lot of this is stemming from the last Bloomberg article done by Mochizuki on the Nintendo Switch Pro. Now, in case you don't know what the hell we're talking about here, evidently there is a Nintendo Switch revision coming out in 2021 that is going to be a beefier system. It'll allow for things like 4K upscaling. It'll allow for things like an OLED screen when playing in handheld mode, which will improve the visual quality of the game, better battery life, better colors, better brightness, and then, of course, there's going to be games that obviously utilize this Nintendo Switch Pro's additional power. It is not a successor to the Switch, it is a revision to the Switch. Now, this is something we have been talking about for a very long time on this channel, and a lot of these reports come to us from Mochizuki. But the most interesting report was, of course, the latest report that said that this system was indeed coming out in 2021 and was going to be announced before E3 2021, meaning that third-party developers and even Nintendo themselves would be able to showcase games running on this Nintendo Switch revision so that they look better in trailers, so that you could do things like 4K when showcasing these games and show additional graphical effects that probably wouldn't be able to be done on the standard Nintendo Switch. Now, since that initial report came out to us from Mochizuki from Bloomberg, a lot of people have sort of corroborated this report. Eurogamer said that they had independent sources that could also confirm things like this. You've had listings pop up on various websites. There was a Amazon of Mexico listing for the Nintendo Switch Pro. There was a French website that also had a listing for a Nintendo Switch Pro, and a lot of it was contingent on it coming out before E3, the announcement that is, coming out before E3 of 2021. Many people circled last Thursday as the date that it was going to happen. Even Jason Schreier was saying that he expected it to happen last Thursday. Of course, that came and went, and we didn't get an announcement. So then a lot of people looked forward to this week, and once again, the Thursday date came into place. People were saying that June 3rd was going to be when it was announced. Retailers such as Amazon of Mexico and this French website actually had pre-orders available for the system internally in their databases as starting on June 4th at midnight. And then yesterday came and went, and there was no Nintendo Switch Pro news. So now there's a lot of doubt in people's minds when it comes to this system and the potential before E3 announcement. Is this actually a thing? Is this actually going to happen before E3? And if it doesn't happen before E3, how would this sort of impact what games we're going to see at E3? Because to me, it sort of made sense, especially if it was going to be a September or October 2021 release like Mochizuki had said in his initial report from Bloomberg. Now, I'm not trying to discredit Mochizuki or anything like that. I'm simply just taking what he has said at face value, along with other places like Eurogamer and people, chiming in, such as Jason Schreier, saying that yes, they expected this to happen before E3. Now, we still have a little bit of time to happen before E3. There is, of course, next week, but I feel like you're sort of cutting it close with that, especially with Summer Games Fest looming, because I feel like that could also be something that would impact the Nintendo Switch revision as far as games running on this new Nintendo Switch. I feel like Jeff Keighley probably does have some third-party developers announcing some Switch games at this event. You never really know what to expect. Yes, last year's was very hit or miss with a lot of misses, but it seems like this is a more proper presentation as opposed to being dragged out for like 2 months. Did like Summer Game Fest 2020 ever end? Like there were supposed to be stages of it and things, and then it just kind of went away and they stopped making announcements for it. So I do feel like this would be somewhat impactful, but the real question is, where the hell is this announcement? Is this even going to be a thing if this announcement doesn't happen? Now, I've always believed in the Nintendo Switch revision just because of what Nintendo has said this whole console generation. If indeed we are at the halfway point of the Nintendo Switch's life cycle, I just don't see this system lasting another 4 to 5 years and of prominence, selling very well if there isn't some sort of revision for people who appreciate things like graphics, who want higher graphical fidelity, because you're going to extend that third-party gap even wider, and a lot of developers won't want to put their games on the Nintendo Switch if indeed there is a huge gap between something like the standard Nintendo Switch or Nintendo Switch Lite and of course the PlayStation 5. Now, speaking of the PlayStation 5, we've seen many games get delayed for that, which we talked about yesterday. Make sure you guys check that out. Screw you, Jim Ryan, you're probably the biggest liar in video games, but still, it's definitely something to think about. And I do feel like this would have made for a very interesting E3 if the Nintendo Switch revision was indeed announced beforehand, because then, like I said, you could see games running on this system. Now, that's sort of what people were expecting because of all these things coming out from industry insiders and of course Bloomberg and Eurogamer, that this would be announced beforehand. And then when you look at what Nintendo has said that they're doing during their E3, Nintendo is going on pretty much last. They are on the last day of June 15th, and they said that it's going to focus on software. So even if Nintendo was to announce a Switch revision at E3 to sort of showcase the system off, you couldn't really do that because of the fact that all of the third-party games from the days previous would be running on the base Nintendo Switch since, well, Nintendo hasn't announced this yet. Now, lots of people are angry about this situation. They feel betrayed by people, and like, I get it, but at the end of the day, it's speculation, it's rumors. When people are putting their neck out on the line, you have to feel like they know something. They at least have had good inside information. They have at least talked to manufacturing plants that are developing these systems and creating these systems. Things are very specific with this system, such as the 4K, the OLED screen, and there's been lots of things that are happening with this system that lead me to believe that it definitely is a reality. The weird thing to me was the whole before E3 announcement, because it seemed very, very soon. Now, I would have loved for this to have happened before E3, and like I said, there is still a chance it could happen. We do have next week, we do have the weekend, although Nintendo doesn't announce stuff on the weekend, so if you're hoping for this, I think Tuesday might be a good date, but you got to keep your expectations in line with this sort of stuff. It's fun to speculate, it's fun to think about things and the possibilities that could come from this and how it will impact the future of the Nintendo Switch. But if it doesn't come to fruition before E3, like, don't get mad about it, get curious about it, want to learn more about it, and want to learn why it isn't happening, where this information got mixed up, and why these people got this thing very wrong if indeed it was supposed to happen before E3. At the end of the day, I definitely believe in this Nintendo Switch revision. Like I said, I think it'll come sooner than later, but if it doesn't come before E3, like, I'm not going to lose any sleep about it. I've just been talking about what people like Mochizuki have been talking about. It's not my inside information. It's nothing that I know personally that I'm trying to dangle in front of you like a carrot. It's just me speculating on what others have said. So it's going to be a very interesting situation. I don't think it's going to die down anytime soon because people want to see this Switch revision. They want to see a beefier Nintendo Switch because they feel like it'll be better for the games that are already released and for the future of games. And of course, I completely agree with that. But if we don't get the announcement before E3, it's not the end of the world, people. There's other video games to play. Alrighty, so that is going to do it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Be sure to let me know what you think of everything in the comment section down below. And as always, thank you for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. The Lakers lost last night. The Lakers are gone from the NBA playoffs, and you know what? I'm happy about that. Like, that's cool to me. Like, I'm not the biggest LeBron fan in the world, and AD and all these super teams. So to see them get out is great. Next, if we could get the Nets out, like, I would be happy. You know, that would make me so happy. I don't care what team wins at that point in time. If we can get the Nets out, let's get the Nets out. And as always, folks, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.